Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We have a new video from Palantir that came out about 4 or 5 days ago. I wasn't able to review it. I'm excited to review it right now. And this is Palantir in space. Now, a couple updates before we get into the video. Palantir recently just launched a couple satellites into space with their strategic partner Satellogic that they created a deal with back in January or early February, I want to say. I did a video on that a while back. I think it was right before earnings, actually, in February. And Satellogic is a company that launches satellites into space. Palantir obviously has a lot of software that's interesting to, make sense of those satellites and the data they get from space. So the partnership made a lot of sense. Now, Palantir has a software called constellation. I did a video on this a while ago. I'll put it in the description. And constellation is this ability to enact and understand real-time data that is coming from space on Earth. How do you do this? It's not an easy thing to do. The way to do this is by having IoT connected devices. IoT are essentially Internet of Thing devices. And Internet of Thing devices are sensors that you would essentially, IoT sensors, you would essentially put on something like a smart autonomous electric vehicle or something like a satellite or something like Siri or a Google Home Nest, etc., Amazon Alexa. These are devices that don't need to necessarily communicate with the internet or communicate with some server when transferring data. They're able to enact on their own, which is the product of Edge AI that Palantir uses. So like if an electric vehicle, has to make a left turn, it doesn't have time to go get all the sensors and give all the data to Amazon Web Services in some big database in some different factory to get the information that it has to make a left turn. It makes a left turn immediately. This is Edge AI. This is stuff it's able to do, that car is able to do, or that satellite is able to do autonomously by itself and give that real-time data, meaning compress and transfer that data back to Earth, back to the original source in seconds. This is incredibly complex technology. It's not easy to get done. It is very difficult to actually pull off because there's a lot of machine learning and AI sort of foundational elements you have to get in order to get this to become right. But the use cases are tremendous. I mean, the ability for satellites to go into space and give us more data on Earth, give us more data on what's happening, give us more data on climate and weather patterns, give us more data on what's going on in Russia and Ukraine so we can track where the bad guys are, where the good guys are. This is what Palantir satellites were also helping with, which Sham Sankar, the COO, admitted a couple of days ago on an interview in Bloomberg with Emily Chang. Along with their strategic SPAC investment, Black Sky, which is like a Google Earth on steroids, also using the software and data to be able to look via geospatial intelligence to make sense of what's going on in Russia and Ukraine. A lot of this stuff is incredibly, incredibly valuable. And companies that are able to do this, like SpaceX, I think are going to be very, very transformational. Now, SpaceX is launching rockets. It's a little bit of a different business model, not necessarily data analytics or software for space, but you never know. I mean, there's a lot of integration when you become a huge rocket ship company where you could potentially offer other services or, dare I say, partner with Palantir, right, to offer joint services. That's a different rabbit hole. But the point is, when you're in this sector of the market, it's complex, it's innovative, it's interesting, and if you pull it off, there's potentially trillions of an industry waiting for you to get a little bit of your own slice for. So let's get into this video right now. Let's see what Palantir is building. It's a 2-minute video. We're going to discuss it, and then we'll go further in depth.
Palantir is a non-traditional company. We push the limits to explore how software can enable fast and accurate decision-making about our world and beyond. It was that sense of curiosity and innovation that brought me to Palantir in 2015. My name is Kelly Girardi, and I'm a mission ops lead at Palantir. I'm also a bioastronautics researcher, a mom, a space enthusiast, and soon to be an astronaut on a dedicated science mission. My career in the space industry has been non-traditional, from leading software teams to testing technology in microgravity. Through it all, I'm proud to be a part of a team that tackles the most mission-critical problems facing our world.
So real quick before we continue, one of the things she says is she's part of a team that is tackling mission-critical problems. Remember, mission-critical is code for army, code for military, but also code for just like stuff that really matters. Like you talk about a fire that breaks out randomly and you need data from the sky to really tell you where are the strongest points of that fire that we could potentially go all in on in terms of our strategy to hose down that fire. That's mission-critical stuff. And mission-critical doesn't equivocate to stock market price exploding, which is why we saw Palantir go below $12 today, but rather mission critical is a long-term trajectory. If you're the company that is solving the bad stuff that's happening, i.e. the mission critical stuff, with the technology that's really not that easy to replicate, or the technology that's not that easy to pull off, which is what SpaceX is doing with reusable rockets, you're the company that benefits in the long term. And that's the stuff I look for in terms of my investment into Palantir, because I'm investing for them in the long term, primarily because I think they have the best technology in the world that no one else can really compete with.
The national security landscape of space is complex. and data in this domain is exponentially increasing and valuable. The ability to harness data so that it can be operationalized drives strategic advantage. In the arena of near-peer competition, Palantir recognizes the imperative for US and Western allies to strengthen our enduring advantage. To do so requires a resilient data architecture. Soon after the founding of the US Space Force, we began supporting the Guardian's data-heavy and highly technical needs. Palantir's platform serves as the data backbone for the Space Command and Control Modernization Program.
And we know that Palantir got $43 million in December from the Space Systems Commands, which is a branch of the government. I believe it's part of the Space Force, or like it's been there before the Space Force, but now, that's like a whole integrated, holistic area of the government. So when she's saying that Palantir is the backbone of the data infrastructure and architecture of what we are doing in space as a country, right? As the United States, how we're operating in space, that means these contracts that are getting are tied to mission critical work from the US government. And, it's pretty amazing for Palantir to be able to land these contracts because they have the technology to be able to get this done. But they did get a $43 million contract back in December.
We're pushing the boundaries of what it means to bring software as a service from Earth to space. Our products are responsive and interoperable across all domains. By deploying AI into orbit, Palantir enables users to ask time-sensitive questions across the entire planet, obtaining insights to help deter, detect, and defeat threats. Palantir's Meta constellation identifies and integrates a mesh of existing satellites to optimize hundreds of orbital, terrestrial, and aircraft sensors and AI models.
That's literally just the coolest. I mean, look at what we're looking at on the screen. They're taking all the satellites that exist across the world, connecting all those data points, putting them together, then building their Meta constellation on top of that. And then when a user has a question, a mission critical question, or just any question about what's going on Earth, they can type it in and get a response. I mean, this stuff is just insane. Like, this stuff is not easy. This stuff is very difficult. And this is the stuff where at least I want my money to be at over the next 10 years, because this stuff's only going to get more and more important. So I thought this video was a good video to react to, just because it talks about how difficult this stuff is, but how important and vital this stuff is when it comes to actually building AI models to deal with space.
Meta constellation determines which sensors are available to schedule coverage over a defined area. With our Edge AI technology, micromodels enable satellite sensors to detect objects of interest and rapidly reconfigure the orbiting satellite based on mission need. Maintaining an enduring advantage in space is dependent on the ability to innovate. At Palantir, we lean into unconventional ideas and approaches. It's what powers us to develop the technology of tomorrow, today. Join us.
Okay, there we go. Palantir. Very, very interesting video. It's one of those videos I wanted to talk about because, again, the Meta constellation stuff, I said this back in like December when I made the video on. It's just like, it's so cool. It's just ridiculously cool. The idea that they're combining Edge AI with these sensors that are orbiting all across the world on these IoT devices, satellites, and they're bringing that data in real time back to the Earth, and they're getting actual insights over what you want to do. I mean, I think Google Earth was the first iteration of it, right? The idea that Google could put satellites in the air and recreate the entire world, and you could search up, the Taj Mahal in India and just zoom. You're there in 5 seconds and you're seeing it. I mean, that's just amazing. It's amazing technology. Now it's a question of, all right, it's not just about seeing the Taj Mahal. It's knowing exactly what's going on in India at this particular moment, because there's a civil war happening here. And how do we, that's incredibly complex stuff. And right now, I believe Meta Constellation is working with the United States. I mean, we're going to know hopefully in the next earnings if Meta Constellation was utilized in the Russia-Ukraine crisis. Sean basically said it kind of was, but we don't know exactly if it was. If I can imagine Meta Constellation going to every European government in the world, right? Or every government outside of Russia and China that needs to know what's happening in space, right? To make decisions on Earth. So you talk about a scalable product and an industry that's only going to be growing and be more rapid, because if the United States has information on what's going on in the sky, London's going to want information. Germany's going to want information. France is going to want it. Like, all these companies are going to want that data. They don't want the United States to have a monopoly on that data. And Palantir is open to working with all those countries. So Meta Constellation, just another layer of Palantir's core. I'm going to be doing an article on this a little bit later on dailypalantir.com, which you guys can check out. So let me know your thoughts on Meta Constellation, and also let me know your thoughts on how you think about Palantir's vision and role in space, the Space Force, and ultimately what space can be as an industry over the next decade. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.